place that encompasses two worlds, two vastly different landscapes of uncompromising beauty. One springs from the earth, the other lies hidden beneath it.
It's kind of like you get the best of both worlds here. You get that wilderness of the underground as well as the inviting prairie that just says, come walk across, see what's down here.
To gaze across this infinite expanse of pristine prairie is to see the place where east meets west and mountain meets plain. But beneath this sweeping terrain lies a labyrinth of cave passages, unlike any in the world.
What's really significant about this cave, what makes this cave nationally significant, is the incredible complexity of the cave. It's the most complex in the world.
They are two awe-inspiring worlds that are forever linked. Together, they create a unique place called Wind Cave National Park.
I am just in awe of this cave. It's just a spectacular place.
It is a secret subterranean world sculpted beneath the Earth's surface. Wind Cave is one of the oldest, longest, and most complex caves ever discovered. Its depths defy comprehension, but its twisting mazes and magical formations seem to call out.
It's a very friendly cave. It's a cave where it's inviting you. You know, when you look down those holes and they call to you. They say, come down here and see what's around the corner.
By the 21st century, Wind Cave's known length reached 94 miles, making it the 7th longest cave in the world. Amazingly, all 94 miles of cave occur in just 1 square mile of the Earth's surface.
3 levels, all interconnected, 200 vertical feet spaced in between them. Each passage we explore now find new clues for how the cave is formed.
The phenomenon that is Wind Cave began 350 million years ago when an ancient sea retreated, depositing shells and sediments that turned into limestone. For millenniums, waters ebbed and flowed, adding still more sediment that formed new layers of rock. Then, 60 million years ago, the land shifted, uplifting the Black Hills and creating a complex system of cracks. The chasms allowed water to flow beneath the Earth's surface. Through eons of time, this acid-rich water worked its magic, dissolving, carving, and enlarging subterranean caverns. Inside the cave, the waters formed geological wonders. Precipitates of calcium carbonate cling to its surfaces, adorning it with a variety of shapes. These magical formations are amazingly diverse, from rounded nodules called popcorn to icy crystals known as frostwork. But the defining feature of Wind Cave is its delicate boxwork. Thin fins of calcite decorate cave ceilings and walls with an intricate honeycomb pattern. To those who named it, it looked like open-ended boxes. Exceedingly beautiful, the boxwork is so fragile it can only exist in a protected underground world.
Some of the boxwork is so delicate that the person just accidentally brushing it will break it. Same thing with the frostwork, extremely delicate.
With its labyrinth of complex passageways, winding depths, and fragile formations, Wind Cave is one of the Earth's great wonders.
I'd like visitors to walk away knowing that they've seen one of the great caves in the world.
It's just an incredible vistas here. You just see off into infinity.
It is a land where time seems to stand still. A canvas painted with the vastness of the prairie and the splendor of the hills. Wind Cave is a point in America's heartland where the Great Plains embrace the edge of the rolling Black Hills, and feathery prairie grasses sway next to stately ponderosa pines.
Wind Cave provides us the opportunity to see the broad variety that prairies are. There's always something to explore, always something to see.
Here a tapestry is woven of forest, ravine, and grassland.
Sometimes when the wind's blowing through, you get the feeling that you're looking across an ancient ocean. And you feel what feels like an ancient sea breeze.
Where ocean breezes once blew, a sea of gently waving grasses dance on wind that's blown for thousands of years. This is a place of timeless beauty, but the first settlers to cross the Great Plains heading west may not have noticed the prairie's subtle charms. Only as the American prairie began to vanish did it become recognized as a precious resource.
Prairies are special places. They're not the Great American Desert as they were described at the turn of the century. They're actually teeming with life.
What is sometimes thought of as a dry, barren land nourishes an incredible variety of plant and animal life. Curious prairie dogs scamper out of their hiding places. Graceful pronghorn antelope glide through prairie grasses. Next to noble bison, the enduring symbol of the Great Plains. Throughout the seasons, the prairie puts on a show of ethereal beauty. In spring, summer, and fall, a symphony of grasses and wildflowers create a crescendo of color, bursting forth in glad celebration.
It's got a magic to it that when you arrive here, you don't feel like you're in somebody else's place. You feel like the place welcomes you. It's a home.
Wind Cave's prairie is a mystical landscape, a home beneath the sheltering sky, and a place where time seems to stand still.
The name that they gave the place was the Wonderful Wind Cave. They knew even back then it was a pretty spectacular place.
For centuries, Wind Cave remained a secret of the hills and prairie. The only ones who may have known of its existence were the native peoples who made their homes nearby. But in 1881, brothers Tom and Jesse Bingham were hunting in the area when they heard the sound of air rushing through a crack in the rock.
And that wind that comes in and out of the cave is what attracted Tom and Jesse Bingham. They heard that whistling sound and they went over to see what was going on. And according to the story, Tom moved the weeds aside, looked down into that tiny little hole, and the wind was blowing so hard that it blew his hat right over his head.
The cave the Binghams discovered that day was named for the fierce rush of wind that whistles through its opening. To the Binghams and others, Wind Cave was little more than a local curiosity. But for a young man named Alvin McDonald, the cave would become the center of his life. The son of a mining manager, Alvin became enthralled with Wind Cave and obsessed with exploring it. Using only a candle as a guide, Alvin was determined to shed light on Wind Cave's mysteries.
Alvin's an incredible young man. He got here when he was 16, and this was his backyard. You know, he could crawl off into any one of these holes and just explore to his heart's content.
As one of Wind Cave's earliest explorers, Alvin crawled through dark passageways and cramped caverns 250 feet below the Earth's surface. He trailed string behind him to make sure he'd find his way back out.
So he mapped it, and more importantly, he kept a journal of what he was talking about down there, what he saw. And without that journal, we really wouldn't have any idea of what they learned about back in the 1890s. He's the person who told us what was here in those days, what we could expect to find, and what needed to be protected.
But to Alvin, Wind Cave was more than a personal adventure. He saw it as a way to make a living. In 1891, Alvin was already giving tours of what was known as the wonderful Wind Cave. By the turn of the century, Wind Cave was attracting hundreds of visitors. But as more and more people came to marvel at its spectacular sights, some began to worry that a national treasure was being destroyed.
One of the real fears at that time, and one of the things that was happening, was they were taking decorations out of the cave, and so, they just were destroying the cave, and people knew that if it didn't have some kind of protection, it wouldn't be here very long.
On January 9, 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt signed legislation that established Wind Cave as the nation's 7th national park, the first devoted to a cave. As one of the country's earliest national parks, Wind Cave's fragile environment had been saved. It's a gift that allows future generations to follow in Alvin McDonald's footsteps and to be amazed at the wonderful Wind Cave.
He is majestic, and he is the spirit of the Great Plains.
They were once 60 million strong. In the early 1800s, huge herds of American bison roamed the Great Plains. For centuries, the vast lands near Wind Cave nourished and protected these majestic beasts. The forest provided shelter, while the grasslands offered food. The bison flourished on the plains and were in turn a lifeblood for the native peoples who lived there.
They helped our people. They were the life givers.
But in the late 19th century, a wind of change was blowing. For massive herds of bison, it would prove to be the winter of their lives. From 1830 to 1885, with the coming of white settlers, these magnificent animals were all but exterminated. In just half a century, 40 million were erased from the face of the earth. Along with the decimation of the bison came the demise of Native Americans' way of life.
The buffalo was our main supply for living, and when the buffalo is decimated, we no longer had access to our home building, the teepee, the clothing. We were having to depend on American way of life. It changed our culture from a Plains culture to an Americanized culture.
By the turn of the century, fewer than 600 wild bison remained in North America. There was just one wild herd left in the United States, protected at Yellowstone National Park. But a decade after Wind Cave National Park was established, its sweeping prairies were seen as a place where bison might be able to start anew.
The American Bison Society was looking for a place to reintroduce bison. They saw the surface part of Wind Cave and the surrounding area as being wonderful places for the bison to come to.
In 1912, Congress passed a bill to establish the Wind Cave National Game Reserve. In the next few years, small groups of bison were brought in from the Bronx Zoo in nearby Yellowstone. From that humble beginning, the herd flourished. For the bison, it was a rebirth, one of the greatest comebacks of all time. Today, these noble animals can once again be seen roaming the Great Plains. They are the spirit of Wind Cave National Park.
He is very much a part of our lives. His spirit still is with our people. And today he's existing in a park here where he's protected. It's just beautiful to see him.
Not all caves have a frontier, but Wind Cave does.
Out of Wind Cave's dark recesses, a new frontier emerged.
If you look to where the light ends and the darkness begins, there is a chance that we don't know how far that passageway goes. And I think that's something that draws our spirit.
Wind Cave calls out to the adventurous spirit to see and explore. Its rare underground world is one of America's last frontiers.
We're a people that always wanted to travel over the next hill, to see what was out there, and to have a wilderness as large as this down here underground, and to have that mystery of where does that hole go? You know, something that I think will draw many people's spirit.
It's a spirit that can also be found in Wind Cave's above ground world, where miles of pristine prairie have remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of years. It's where two frontiers, prairie and cave, come together. The mission of Wind Cave National Park is to preserve these two precious resources for future generations.
It really is part of our heritage. It gets to the heart of what national parks are.
It is a place of two worlds bound by geology, time, and destiny. One nestled in the hillsides, the other hidden beneath them. They are worlds of infinite beauty and rich heritage. They are worlds preserved for all time in a place called Wind Cave National Park.